Welcome to What's Your Sign? I'm Julia Loken.
I'm Stevie Goldstein.
I'm the group concert of this podcast.
Group
Yes,
concert. I
Haven't
know.
seen you guys
I
since.
know.
I know. We've had like Memorial Day, vacay, but yeah, that was our last gathering. And what
What a
what a
gathering. We
what a
went,
gathering to gather at.
we saw the Dead and Company at the Forum.
Hmm.
Many, many first timers.
I was a
Yeah.
first timer. Yeah, it was really
I
fun.
think everyone except, well, Stevie, I mean,
You
Stevie and Babs
guys.
are long timers. I feel like I'm only a second timer is still I mean, it's not a first time, but it's not a long time.
My
I
friend Heather, who went with us, has gone many, many times.
mhm.
She's an Aquarius, so you can imagine how many times she's been
at at hippie shows.
just like digging deep into
Into
Grateful
a
Yes.
Dead.
fandom. Yeah, that was my fifth or sixth time. I just pulled all the set lists of every show I saw because I was just curious because it was Dead and Co's last run. And for those not in the know, this is basically the Grateful Dead, but Dead and Co's with John Mayer. This is their, if you're watching on YouTube, air quotes for me, last tour. I just think that means John's probably done, but we'll see. John came out with Bob when Bob had a solo show last fall. The boys, look, they get to just noodle around and play songs everyone loves. It's kind of
Mhm.
a sweet deal. I don't know why you would ever stop that train, but I also get if you have like side projects you want to do. But it was fun. We went 2 nights. It was kind of extreme. Yeah, I mean, we almost convinced our Uber driver to come to the concert. He was really thinking about it. He had never heard of the Grateful Dead before. He was laughing at the idea of like a collective group as deadheads. And yeah, I don't know if you've never been to like a open air drug market, it's definitely something that's like a fun first time. Or I guess there's people who've been doing it for their whole
Their
Years.
lives,
whole
Yeah.
lives.
like their whole living lives. I mean, I bought tarot cards from a guy who made tarot cards, and it had his whole bio about how he used to tour, and then Jerry died, and then he went back on tour after raising his kids, and then made these, had a connection to tarot, and it was just like, yeah, I'm like, at day one, me and Pablo were like, do we just keep going? Like, do we follow them? Like, maybe this is. We don't really have much on the calendar for June and July, so maybe we just go. And then by night two, we're like, that was enough. I get, I get it. But yeah, what do you guys? I mean, did you like the fate? Was there fave elements? Was it like the people or music or just the like history? Or I'm curious, like what connects or doesn't connect for our newer deadheads.
Scott and I were also thinking about going, so following them.
Oh, continuing
Yeah.
on. Yeah, I mean,
um,
it's like, well, this. I mean, there's something comforting, like you know what you're gonna get, but it always is different. So there is something familiar but ever changing, which is like hits a right note, dun dun
very
for the music.
Uranus and Taurus,
Mm-hmm.
for now of the
Mhm.
now. I
Yeah.
found that I feel generally averse to like, dead things or death like themes
Mm-hmm.
in movies and TV, and I'm not like great with it when it happens, though I can't imagine anyone is. I lost a family member recently as well, and so I felt like it was a really nice presentation of those themes, and like, yes, often a little icky or weird or uncomfortable, but it also felt like a really nice celebration of the dark and the rebirth and all of those kind of things that I wasn't expecting, despite like it being in the name. um so that was like a really pleasant surprise for me, because I mean, I know like the songs, but they're not playing the like studio version of anything. So it wasn't really that type of experience for me. I like that kind of thing. I like jam and whatever, but it's not like you get to like sing along every word like at a Carly Rae Jepsen concert, which is what I go to. So I definitely felt like there was a nice balance of like, yeah, like some like things came up and I felt a little bit more like open to them rather than being like, let's shut this out and turn the pop music up.
Hell
Yeah.
yeah. This one was definitely a different kind of trip. I feel like, as you know, the first one I entered and came back from the void. I fainted, and this one I did not. I stayed in this realm, as far as I know. But I was noticing a lot of like inner child stuff, inner child themes coming out, watching people and again, I'm thinking of the child in me as well. That was like a big like thought, but I think that, I mean, it's just a trip. It's fun watching people. It's just fun watching people be in an element where they feel like this is where they come to be in their element, whatever that means. It's something different for everybody, and kind of noticing the different genres of fan, and who's coming with their family, who came to like kind of escape their family, and who is one of the funniest things to me this time was during the drums in space time, kind of just looking around. It was a different physical experience too, because it wasn't an outdoor show, and so I think being inside, I was much more aware of the kind of like lights and productions and things. And I wrote a little thing about watching both like the stage lights and the like the shadows of the lights in the back, because we were also kind of far in the back, and I feel like you didn't feel that as much in the outdoor venue, because it's like outdoors and you kind of are all outside and it's big and echoey and like that, but you could kind of tell like, oh, there was like a different experience happening for everybody in each kind of section, and how that would influence what you're seeing in all of these. And kind of in the back, it was a little more spooky because you were in the shadows of the lights too. You could obviously see it there, but if you kind of were looking around at anything else, which is like what you do, because there's these long breaks and that kind of thing, which I also like, but it is much more of a like, hey, I'm sitting down, you guys are taking me somewhere, I have no idea where we're going, and I'm not in control or in charge of this at all. There's no like, the woman in front of me was so like wanted to hear a specific song, and I was like, babe, this is not how these things go. Like, I mean, I hope you hear it tonight, but like, I came prepared to not know a single song.
Wait, do you know what song
she wanted to hear? Terrapin Station so bad, which
we heard, which we
did hear. But she would say it, and it was so funny. It was so funny because she would say it for like every song, even though it did not sound like it. Because they kind of blend and bleed into each other, and they'll kind of play riffs of something in there. And she's like, "It's Terrapin Station next," and we're like, "I don't know where you're getting this from." You're just willing this to be. But I was really noticing who was still dancing during the drums in space times, and who was also not. No one was dancing to the drums, but just still needed to do, like, that was their thing,
yeah,
which is very funny and endearing.
Yeah, and at least as far as I know, every show they play drums in space, which is this like super meditative. It sounds like what it is. Like they're just, it's all the drummers or percussionists, anyone who's more in that electronic space going into Zen mode. This is a big bathroom clearing time, because like if you've also been a bunch, you've like, I've seen drums in space, but the drums in space for the night, because that we were all there, was really good. It was very hypnotic and very, I mean, it's always like
tones.
That. Yeah.
A lot of like, yeah.
It was hidden in a way. I also fell asleep in drums in space on night one, which I needed. I was like, I needed the little power nap, and then I like returned.
Well, that was something
inside too, because outside, even if I was like sleepy, I would get awoke by wind or something.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the things that struck me too on that is where it's like, yeah, if you need to sleep or bathroom break or just sit down, this is like like they're giving you permission at so many times to do whatever it is you need in that moment. And it's just funny when people don't take that invitation, because the woman in front of me too was like, come on, let's go, and I was like, that you are misreading the vibe so hard right now.
It's drums in space. It's drums in space time now,
and it's gonna be done. That's the thing too that's so funny, where it's like, this isn't gonna last the whole rest of the show. You've been to when you have like a shirt on, you've been here before. What, just sit, it's 20 minutes, dude. Do whatever you need.
I do think it being indoors makes a big difference because I wasn't expecting it to be as dark inside as it was. And I
Mhm.
remember because I saw another concert there that relies heavily on light show, and it was also very dark, but it was Bon Iver, which is less dance. Like everyone's pretty much seated the whole time. So there wasn't really a lot of like people dancing or getting up or people in aisles as much because you're like there to kind of watch the lights.
There's no
But
spinners at Bon Iver.
no, you'd be surprised. There isn't. I mean, maybe I don't know. Not the
Hey,
show I went to.
let's start it.
Yeah. Start spinning.
But yeah, like it was less noticeable to me during that because people weren't getting up and there wasn't that where I think maybe in an outdoor venue there's much more natural light happening from outside and the moon and stars and all the
Yeah. There I was thinking this after the show. I'm like, what is the Grateful Dead's chart as a band? Because the staying power is ridiculous, something to take note of. And then also, I think, and I bitch about this all the time. I hate how, especially streaming services, don't let you screenshot or screen record things.
Mhm.
The whole Dead's ethos has been like, make a bootleg shirt. It's mainly, as they say in their doc, we don't want to be cops, but also it's like brilliant marketing as well. Like, why wouldn't you want people? Like someone seeing a bootleg is going to make them want to buy your shit anyways. So like it's no harm in that game. And so, we'd be remiss to not bring up Jerry because there's also the legacy of Jerry and like just sort of within the whole Dead element, like really solidifies this Dead era. It has all the good like legacy stuff. I think, for any friends or family listening, I think they think that like Pablo got me into it and I got Pablo into it. And then his very Virgo-y self got researcher brain. And that's like, if you want a band like a Dylan or anybody where you're just like, oh, I can Velvet Underground, like I could nerd out on this. It's endless. And there's also like pop cultural history and all that sort of thing. But Jerry, because he's a Libra rising, Aries moons, back to today's topic, which I'm like, oh, I did not realize Leo sun. I was just looking at his chart. So just here's Libra rising, just take that on for size. But the Grateful Dead's the first show under their name at a Ken Kesey acid test was December 4th, 65. Now there's also another article saying their first gig was May 5th, 65. Either way, 65 seems to be the year that we're getting the Dead. So we had Saturn and Pisces. Hello, welcome back. And then also at that time, Jupiter and Gemini. And just looking at Jerry's, I'm thinking of Jerry as like the figurehead of this. Of course, we have all the other guys that have some, most still in the band, but that would put this Saturn in Jerry's fifth house, very like long lasting artistic legacy. And then Jupiter, the sort of expansiveness right in the beginning of his eighth house. Cause I'm looking at it in Placidus too. So, take that with will. So that just feels like, I don't know. I like the cementing and then also the social expansion of like, this is making tapes. This is for everybody.
Their Uranus in Aries, right? His natal chart is Uranus in Aries.
His natal chart is Uranus and Gemini.
Uranus and Gemini.
With Saturn and Gemini as well. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then they would have potentially had Uranus Jupiter conjunction too, I think, which is like an interesting what do they have? What was I thinking of Aries then?
We at this time
his moon's there.
Moon, but I thought because I was thinking about generationally, I thought that the 60s was when people had a sextile from something in Aries to that Uranus and Gemini. And it seemed like a time when it was very much like ideas of self, like knowing your true self, apart. Being yourself, going apart, independent thinking, independent, all of these kinds of things, but also just Uranus and Gemini makes sense regardless. But then he would have potentially that Jupiter Uranus conjunction being like, I think that is cool.
Yeah. Okay. He's I think the main thing at that time in 65 was we had Pluto conjunct Uranus in Virgo.
Okay.
Which just feels like, the 60s counterculture,
a
change. I'd have to dig into maybe the Virgo-ness of it all, but it does feel back to the sustainability or like forming your own weirdness or new normal.
One of the things that someone that we saw at the concert was telling me was that like Jerry ended up feeling a lot of responsibility over those people who made their livelihood from selling shirts outside of shows and stuff. And so took on a lot of like guilt about touring and making sure that these people had an opportunity to make their living or whatever. And feeling that responsibility, which I think, isn't it fifth house or sixth house that's employees? It definitely is
Sixth.
like right around. So it's
Feels
that
six,
kind of,
yeah.
it's that kind of like stuff happening. I also wonder, like, to some extent about what you were saying of them having longevity, like their ability to be mutable and change. I don't have their chart or anything, but like they've changed band members, front runner. They've like gone on and on and on. And I feel like there are a lot of, especially musicians, but artists that just, if it's not like the four of us, it stops or whatever. Or I think we've talked about before too, like passing the torch along and those kind of things, which I think really do help you maintain that long form ability. And I think we tend to think it's always fixed stuff that stays, but it really is the ability to do all three, to like cardinal fix mutable, cardinal fix mutable.
Yeah, there's a lot. I think it just seems like a fun reflection for while we're in this Saturn Pisces time too, because I think we've been talking a lot of it being like letting go and not changing, or metamorphosizing into whatever it is meant to be. And also, if we go with this, it's like I like both of these dates as like, I don't know, would you even count the first album release? I don't know. Like, again, the Dead has a lot of dates because they were just doing a lot of shit at the time. Like they couldn't stop performing and working on stuff.
Well, that's like, the nature of death itself is that too, to continue growing and,
all of it. It's a life of its own, because it's also like you have, the band itself becomes a band, but you enter a new phase when you put out an album, when you have an album that goes whatever. You could also go into like, well, yes, this is the first album that they did, but this would be the album that was like the Dead as we conceive of them today. There's so many arguable points.
Yeah. And I mean, another fun fact too, just since maybe zooming out the outer planets makes a little more sense, since the dates are a little wonky and it feels more of that sustained generational thing. But we also had Neptune and Scorpio, which also feels pretty deady, trining that Saturn water thing. So maybe, I don't know, maybe if there is a creative project you want to do or something and you're like stuck, I think it seems like they really went with the elements of what was there. And I think what does set them apart and did set them apart and still does is, yeah, if you've ever done psychedelics, you do go to a dark place usually, even for a second, because that'd be weird if you're only like, nope, only good things in my brain.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's also like an extension, thinking of the upcoming transit, not super, but getting closer. It's closer than we think, of Uranus going back into Gemini, and it being a kind of commentary time on, thinking of this music being music and the associated drug tripping, social commentary, all of that, coming from a time when we were experiencing, I mean, not that we're not currently too, but you're having tons of war, you're having tons of tons of death and all of that, and needing to figure out how do we deal with those kinds of things. And I think it'll be interesting to see if we see any kind of resurgence of how are we going to use creativity and music and community like that to deal with the themes of our generation, of our times.
I think that's a really good maybe transition into our topic, because one of the things that I was really kind of not like shocked, but I was just surprised when I was reading. I took 3 different books and they're all from different like time periods. One's from, I guess, 1998 and 2001 are a little closer, and then the other one is from, it's Robert Hand's Planets in Transit. I'm trying to find the date on it, but I know it's definitely,
it's like
not
84.
Yeah, I know it's definitely not 2000s. 76. So all of the books, when talking about moon signs and talking about the feminine, had some sort of, and all the different authors are different genders and different, grew up at different times, Each one of them had some sort of sentence or caveat thing about gender and about the way we view it today. And I find that interesting because it's something that we're still talking about and doing. And obviously, we've made, I think, even more strides in like not being so binary and all those things. I just thought it was interesting that like from each generation, they were like saying like, oh, not that I think everything this is feminine, or not that I would ever, like, I personally don't subscribe to that, even like from the 70s to now. Like, so
Mm-hmm.
it just felt like an interesting through line of something that we've been looking at for so long, and also like a connection with those astrologers before us that also had those more progressive views.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess it, maybe just because I haven't looked up moon signs in a while. And I think that's the fun thing of returning back to the basics, if you will. I was like, oh my God, so much of this is about mommy, like the woman, like that was just like, I feel like top result one over and over. And I knew that because, like, duh, but I think I do go into the more that feeling, that tell me how you really feel, that intrinsic sort of energy with the moon. And but I do think it's like a nice reminder that yeah, we can have feminine without it being prescriptive of, a role one must play. Like I think we all can embrace feminine energy and whatever that means for you at home, or if you are like fuck
Mm.
this, leaving it. But yeah, I'm like, so much of the mother in the womb, and it, like, yeah, it makes sense. Like that's, yeah, it's like it is changing and growing and also controlling so much of what's happening here on earth too. So it is life.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, this made me think of a ton of things. My main sources for today were Mythic Astrology, by Ariel Gutman and Kenneth Johnson, which I use for sun sign, and I'll continue using for these planetary ones because I think it's cool. Um, and also I have some quotes from The Inner Sky too by Stephen Forrest. Um, but the main, yes, of course, mother, but I think all of these things come down to, and to make it be not a binary of feminine masculine, but let's make our binary today moon and sun. And I think if we are talking about the sun, we are talking about something that is ever the same, completely consistent, outward facing, you know, the high point of a thing versus the thing that is never the same, that is changing all of the time, that is in the dark, that is all of this. And people don't like to admit that we are also changing and fluxing and needy and all of those things. And so I think it is, as much as that has been put on women, on the feminine, and calling anything that's mysterious, anything that's unknowable, any of these things are things that are complicated and that are that are nuanced and changing. So to me, the biggest thing is just that, like, anytime you want to say feminine or something like that, like what you really mean is complicated or changing or something like that.
That's one of the things that Robert Hand says in there, that like um the moon is like caught up in this idea of being unexpected, which gets put on women, and I think often on women in a way that's like, oh, what does she ever period? We'll never know, she'll
Mhm.
like drop the nuclear code or whatever. And he even says like, which I don't subscribe to, like I don't agree with
Yeah.
it totally, but it is like this idea that we put that, oh, women, you never know what they're up to.
And yet that it is also as reliable, if not a more reliable way of calculating time and like where we are. There are more lunar calendars and more ancient. Before we knew how to measure the sun, we kept time by the moon because it is still reliable, even though it's not the same every day the way the sun is. The sun is much harder to mathematically track. And I think that that's an interesting way, if we're thinking about it again in the binary, in the moon sun binary, where it's like, yeah, how do you quantify like enough achievement or enough whatever? Like, it's never fucking enough. Whereas the moon tells you exactly how full it is, exactly where it's exactly what it's like lacking, what it needs to kind of make up for it, whatever. Very, very actually reliable when we listen to the parts of us that need something. Again, like there is something that's less, while that's scary or unknowable or whatever, what a mysterious,
Mhm.
it's easier to go like, oh, I'm hungry, feed me, than I'm ambitious, fucking like
Well, it's
Mhm.
also
serve
like
me. Like what?
it's also like yeah, except for every fourth year when there's like an extra day, you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
and it's like, what happened to you then? Like sun energy, like how did that work out
Yes,
for you?
exactly.
I I
Yeah.
don't know why I was, but I was drawn to like the. I just wanted a refresher on like what she is. This moon, like I was
Mhm.
like, wait, give me the sciencey. It's facts again, it's facts and stats. So this is from space.com. Yes, that is
Oh yeah.
that's real. But I thought that this was an interesting thing to consider and right, all this legit logistic stuff of the planets or the luminaries are directly correlated to like their symbolism too. And the moon is a fourth of our size of Earth. It's the largest moon to planet ratio in the solar system. Maybe like not in deep space, but for the planets that we know. And it was, I think that effect on Earth. I like this quote. This was also, I had a mixture of space.com and this natural history museum website. I'll put the link. But this doctor or researcher was just talking about, the moon's been up so long in our evolution while it's taking place that these circulunar rhythms, these lunar rhythms are embedded into so many organisms. And it's like, oh, right. Like this is, she's been here. There was these bugs. It's in this article I'll put, but there's these bugs called sandhoppers that have a sun compass and a moon compass in their antenna. So like they know like it gets pinged when it's sunny out so they can go do shit. And then it gets pinged when the moon is out so they can burrow. And then there's like a million other examples like the Great Barrier Reef corals pop off during like these certain full moons from October to December. I mean, there's just it's and we know the tides. Like we truly feel the moon here on Earth, astrologically aside, astrology aside, like legit, like how things are functioning. So I think I maybe as a Cancer rising, as a very moon, as a moon rule person, it was cool to get that reminder of like, oh my god, the moon is so with us, like all the time, even if we're not, always seeing it, because it is always, it's like it isn't as consistent as the sun. It is changing, flux and fleeting, and even like scientists are like, I don't know why. Like I don't know why it's over here right now. Like it's just doing its thing. Oh my god, super moons, micro moons, whatever. She keeps it spicy. That's why we love a fleeting changing her mind queen.
One of the things that they said in Mythic Astrology was when they went to the moon and they brought back like moon stuff, they were like, we have more questions about this. This did not answer anything. It only led to more questions about what is happening with the moon.
She stays an enigma, even though
I
she's our neighbor. Like we've been to her.
I like this quote. This is from Shakespeare's Love's Labor Lost, and it says, "You took the moon at full, but now she is changed, yet is still the moon."
Uh,
Mm.
Also, I think I've told
That's
you guys, in Catholic school, they taught us that the moon landing was fake. So this took like a lot of years for me to
Hell
whoa.
yeah.
like I kept those beliefs too long and late in life, where I was like, the Russian space race, it kind of makes sense. Like
Listen,
we had to get up there.
there's an argument to be made about the footage. I don't think the actual landing,
Yeah, for sure.
the people went to space, but
Now they're like coming home being like, the moon landing was fake. And it's like, oh,
Mm.
Catholic education. She's bright. I now think the moon landing did happen.
It's
good.
one of the things I love about doing ocean stuff is like you have experts in a field that aren't necessarily like, cast aside as pseudoscience in the way that astrology is, um, following patterns and things of lunar cycles. And it's really fun to watch, like a dive expert be like, well, we can't go that day. The moon's like full, or it's, it's
Mhm.
tides are going to be too strong. We're not going to be able to get out. So like that day we have to do this or that. And same with like surfers and all of those kind of things where it's it is like tapping into, and it's also lived experience too, which I think does influence our emotions a lot of the times. I know that everybody here listening or present has felt triggered by something where you almost get taken back into past emotion because someone's treating you in a way you thought you were past or whatever. And it's interesting how transcendent feeling and all of those things really are to things like time, and it's just interesting to have it reflected in such a physical way in the ocean where it's like, oh no, I'm not going out, I'm not swimming out on that day, I remember that wave, like I'm not doing that again, or I can't wait to go catch this one, it's crazy.
Well, I think again we're talking about how do you feel about I mean already a moon word, but how do you feel about change, phases, and things you can't control? Because I think that your example too of being triggered is a thing that you didn't mean to do. You thought you were past this thing. You've moved, you are not literally in that same time. And yet there is a thing that comes out in us that is a response that we are not in control of, that we doesn't mean we can't also reflect on, given time and therapy and whatever. But that feeling comes up however you respond to it is different than the feeling itself that you cannot control coming up. You can choose to respond in a way that is healthier or unhealthier or more in alignment with who you are today versus who you were when you initially were wounded in that way. But that response is coming whether you want to or not. The same way you have to sleep, eat, puke, whatever. And I think that the kind of like mother association to me is less about it being literal mothering, although it is, because that is the person who has traditionally been in charge of feeding, clothing, caring for someone's needs through different phases and at different levels of that. And I think that also implies that the mother figure is one who has the wisdom to know that people cannot be controlled in certain ways, that they go through certain phases and you have to just let them cry it out, let them take a nap, even though they say they don't want to. Like, you can't take it at face value. You have to know there's something else going on underneath. But also how you feel about that, and knowing that those forces are, if not just as powerful, more powerful than the ones that we are conscious of. Again, sun moon binary. Your conscious will is not stronger often than your unconscious feelings. And if you aren't aware that you have those unconscious ones, then I don't give a shit about your will. Like, your will is useless almost.
One of the things that both Joanna Martine Wolfolk and Robert Hand mentioned in their descriptions of the moon were that it's something that other people can sometimes see when you can't, which I find really interesting, because I think when we do talk about moon signs, we talk about emotions and things that it almost feels like it's, stuff that we intentionally hide from others rather than the other way around. But I do think sometimes, you can tell on somebody's face that you've hurt their feelings without them saying it, or vice versa, that, oh, they're, I definitely have this feeling, bartending or whatever, where it's like, this guy's hitting on me. He's not like saying anything to hit on me, but I can tell by the way he's being that he's like interested in me in a romantic or sexual way. And it's like, you can't like say how or why, it's indescribable, and that person probably doesn't even realize they're giving you that kind of attention sometimes. So it's just interesting, because I personally, from however I've studied astrology, I've always thought of it as this kind of, it's mine, it's like something in me, and it's personal and all those things, and of course it is, and oftentimes people don't know how we're feeling. I'm not saying walk around and expect people to read your mind or your feelings, but I think sometimes we forget and we do let those things show, and other people can see it. And I think very similar to motherhood, like most mothers that I know, most like amazing mothers that I know, don't even realize they're momming when they're doing it. They're like busy, cleaning up and talking and chatting and doing this thing, and it's like, whoa, you've just made dinner and you've just done this and this and that, and not even realizing that you're caring for someone else while you're doing it.
Yeah, I do think the moon, it pops out, right? Because it's hard for it not to. And I think also once you get to know people better, you're going to get to know that moon a little bit better. Like I was even at like a dinner with a Gemini moon friend, and I also Mercury Gemini. So I'm like, I found myself like being like, oh my God. And she did this one time. And I was like, wait, I'm sorry for sharing all your stuff. She's like, go, keep going. Like, I want to talk about these things. And it's like, but that was the intimacy. Like we could share that intimacy where I wasn't speaking for her. I was like, I was like teeing her up. I'm like, you got to tell us about this thing. And I was that, but I had a check self moment. I was like, oh no, wait, we're close. We're intimate. Like this is, the kids love the vibes. And I think the moon is definitely, you just know it. Like, yeah, when someone's hitting on you, it's like, you just know. I mean, I'm watching the Queer Ultimatum right now. Vibes, moon signs are afoot, and moons there's a lot of moon acting, and I think it's easy to, the sun does take up so much of the show, not this TV show, like the show of life, because it is what we are shining a light here to do. But, there's also some other light casting in, and we're not going to just be singularly focused people. And I think getting in touch with your moon, whether, you have a moon sign like home in Cancer, or if it's like, if you have no moon, lunar, Cancer, I mean, we all have a moon sign. And it is the most changing of our planets, we'll call it a planet, on a day to day. So I think it's hard to not note like
Well,
the moon, she's present and she's speaking to us. And it's also then giving us so much also activation in the day-to-day mundane astrology too. Cause otherwise it would just be, I love that the moon's like, same with rising signs, right? It's like such a crapshoot. Like I generally know what your personal planets are going to be, your outer planets going to be, but your moon and rising, I'm like, I have no idea who I'm meeting or what it's going to be all about. And then once you get that info for someone's chart, you're like, oh, okay.
mm-hmm.
Puzzles unfolding.
I think no matter what, the question to ask yourself about your moon in getting in touch with that is like, and it's funny because to me, I'm like, this is a very Uranian question, I guess, but not. It's like, how do you feel about change? How do you feel about yourself changing? And how have you felt other people respond to your changing, and how have you internalized those feelings too? Because I think that, of course, in the moon in Cancer, in the moon in Taurus, signs that are, ruled by exalted, the moon, and maybe even some other water signs in general, while, you're going to get Scorpio maybe has a more difficult reputation, it's still water, and all these, there are going to be signs where it's like kind of more baked in. But if you have a sign, no matter what sign is there, we're talking about a relationship to change, to need, to fluctuation, to receptivity. And I think that is the yin to the yang of the sun in it, where it's like, we can't just go on. We have to rest. We need to take a break. We need to sit. We need to eat. We need to sleep. All of those things. And I think really thinking of our moon sign as our, like, not ourself, but as our container, as the container for the thing that has to do all of the other planets. Like, what does that need? And some people are more comfortable with needing than others, or some signs are going to be more naturally or like socially naturally. I think everyone is going to have a struggle in some sense of, what do I need? What can I control? What can I not? But I think again, it's control, it's change, it's need, and receiving.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. We can scratch this or not, but I did have. Do you guys know like WikiHow? Like I had like they had each moon sign in the sign. I didn't know if we want to like quickly go through this, because I know
yes,
like, as a game that I'm very excited for to wrap out. But I'm just curious, like, because I was gonna write some things for the signs, and then I found this list, and I was like, actually, I kind of want to. This feels very moon sign. Respond to this and see if this clicks. Lisa, could you actually share me back posts? Maybe I'll just share because they're good.
One of the things that while I'm doing this, that Robert Hand says that I think is really interesting, and maybe we can kind of look at here we go. We can kind of look at this list through this lens. Maybe, I don't know if this works for you guys or not, but he talks about it as it moves through the signs, like you're saying, so quickly, and it's so ever changing. It does it every single month, or it's like it's a habitual thing. So it really can unlock for us some of our habits if we really track it and watch it. Because it is hitting one of each signs every single month. You can, rather than, it's easier to keep track of something like that. And so it is still consistent and still in turning and all of those things. So maybe we can look at these things through that lens.
Well, that I love that, because it is, to me, one of the things I wrote down of this, like, oh, mysterious, unknowable. And is it like, no, you just don't want to sit down and go like, oh, actually, I'm very predictable. I do this X, Y, and Z. Again, it might be different trigger points, different reasons why you do it, but I get hungry around this time. I get sad around this time of the, like, this time of the cycle or whatever. And it is, I think, much more,
it's all those things
and knowable.
All those things you hear about people going wild on the full moons and all of that. It's like, oh, that kind of does make sense if we're saying, there, and I don't know if this is true, but they say like more hospital visits and more blah, 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 Yeah,
I mean, the moon, it also makes, we have our new and full moon Patreon episodes every month too. So like, when it is fully dark, we can have that space to think and reflect and make something new. And when the light's shining, there's more, be like, oh, I can see all the dust and all the things that I maybe want to cleanse out or clear. And I think also knowing your moon phase for when you're born for your natal chart also plays, like, the moon's so literally variable. So I love WikiHow. Also, I'm just scrolling. So this is good YouTube bait for you all as well. So if you're not watching on home, look at, I just like his closed eyes with the moon.
Yes.
WikiHow is always so just like how to do everything you've never thought you could look up on WikiHow, but cycles, a lot of stuff we talked about, feminine energy, blah, blah, blah. But I'm here to go through the signs, because I just like, spoiler alert for what's to come. I just like all their little looks. But moon in Aries, you're opinionated, courageous, passionate. You aren't afraid to tell it like it is. You get in trouble sometimes since other may perceive you as aggressive. You're prone to emotional outbursts, but they pass quickly. Watch out for your impulsive side, which can lead you down unexpected and difficult paths. Thoughts on this business suited Aries? This is my moon sign. All the other Aries moons I've met, I'm like, I instantly clock, and I'm like, I recognize my fellow Ram brethren. But curious, you got any thoughts on the Aries moon people?
Yeah, I love the Aries moon. I think they're I would say that they feel more to me like natural leaders rather than Aries sun. Not that Aries suns are not, but it just I feel that they get that
passion,
kind of urge to follow, that like gut instinct, that moon thing that's like, oh, I'll take the reins or whatever. But maybe in a way that's like, the Aries sun is going to be the one you point at in the classroom. The Aries moon is going to be the one that stands up and raises their hand, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I love an Aries moon. I'm very envious of an Aries moon. I think my like, not caution, I guess that was like my thing, because they say it in there. The big Aries moon thing is that your emotions pass quickly, but people remember your quick emotions. You might get over it, but your quick impulsivity can still be long lasting for other moons.
Totally.
Not
untrue. We're all cardinal moons here too. So thinking of your modality, your element too. Yeah, it's a fiery ass moon. It's gonna be a little hot shot action.
Yeah. But I like that. And I think it is when, if you add in the part about their emotions passing quickly, I think that to me is like the most attractive thing in a moon sign sounding, again, as a Capricorn moon, or I'm like, if this could burn out, that's a superpower.
Their cycle too, it's like I get heated up, I cool down, I get heated up, I cool down. We'll see other ones are not that way.
Yes. I think too, if for all the moon signs coming, these are very, which is fun, just like going through the very stereotypicalness of them. I mean, this Taurus moon, just living life, blissed out, great eyelashes. But I think too, if you're like, I don't process quickly and I'm an Aries moon, well, never thought maybe try it. Yeah. Maybe letting go, some cord cutting.
And might be, we also have
aspects.
I was like, we got to consider aspects. We have to consider other mitigating factors. But I think also, like Lisa said, maybe that's not how you think of it, but I would also ask
Other people
the
do,
people around
yeah.
you who they see you get mad about, because
and
that,
your situations too.
Yeah.
Maybe you do let things go at work, but when it's friends and this, it's like, look at the houses. And so that's, that's how we use astrology on the macro level. It's not what we're doing right now, but yeah.
You're right.
I do think Aries moon also, another like not warning but caveat thing would be, I think oftentimes because it is quick, it is also one that feels more unknowable than other moon signs, because it also isn't kind of sitting there lingering and as ever present the same way. That might be me projecting onto Aries moons, but I do find that it's one that maybe you feel like you have less of a like a conscious like hold on it, but I think that again,
no, they need warning labels. I think that was appropriate an appropriate language of like, be warned, moving quick. Also, I love my sponsored ads for La Mer. Just they know who I am on Google Chrome right now.
Classic.
Like, Moon and Taurus, we've got this peaceful looking Zen person. Hope that's not the white power symbol. Just go with that. That's like, just
it's a scuba. It's a scuba sign.
She's okay.
So you guys know, it's a scuba sign. Everybody has to do it. It's a safety thing. Sorry.
Yes. No. They unfortunately.
Just showing once again how unoriginal white supremacy is. Can't even come up with
it's
their
a
own.
Hindu mudra too. I mean, it's not even for you,
right? Same with swastikas from Hindu.
Again, where it's like, come on, do you invent anything?
Stealing constantly,
no culture
jacking,
no culture. So Moon and Taurus. You approach situations in a calm, rational way. Stability soothes you, and you tend to be set in your ways. Staying inside your comfort zone isn't necessarily a bad thing for a Taurus moon, but sometimes you can be resistant to change. If you feel yourself digging your heels in, pay attention to why. You may need to let go of something that's no longer serving you. Is all the Taurus moons okay after hearing that?
This is one I don't have a lot of in my like friend groups and circles, and I don't know if it's because I have so many Taurus sons and it escapes me to know them. But I feel like it feels right. I also think that this is a sign that tends towards comfort, which it does say, but I think that for some signs, like, your comfort is in being uncomfortable, that kind of devil thing. And so like evaluating what is comfortable to you. Is it actual comfort or is it sameness? Because I think those are two different things that can be like a really sticky spot for fixed people.
Yeah, in The Inner Sky, Stephen Forrest talks about the dysfunction of the moon being self-indulgence, timidity, laziness, wishy-washiness, overactive imagination, indecision, and moodiness. And I think that to me speaks of Taurus moon. Not that a Taurus moon is a dysfunctional moon, because it is exalted. Another interesting thing is one of the like images associated with the moon is the bull with the horns that are like the crescent moon and all of that, which is one of the ways that we get Taurus exalted. Anyway, as like just a fun little like, oh, that's fun. That was from
hidden moon symbol.
Yeah, that's from Mythic Astrology. But I agree with what you're saying, Lisa, of this kind of like staying within you what you know, even if they are not healthy tendencies. And this can be both like, self-indulgent. This can be also indecision, I think, too, in that of like, oh, I'm not getting involved. I don't want to get too emotionally vulnerable. I don't want to get too whatever. I just kind of stay where I'm comfortable.
And that's a cycle again too. So I think if you have Taurus moon, that's something to analyze. The digging in your heels, those like, when do we feel relief from those things? Is it happening, while the moon's transiting a certain house? Is it around certain people? Is it around certain times of day? Like mapping those cycles for yourself, only to give you the information. Doesn't mean you have to change, but should you want to, you might be able to. And
it's like that. I think it's like enjoying comfort and expecting comfort all the time are two different things. And again, the moon is always going to be changing. So how much discomfort, like you're going to have to tolerate some kind of discomfort at some time. Where and how, it doesn't necessarily have to be in your shoes or whatever. But yeah.
I wonder, it's similar to me of like what you mentioned with Aries moon, Lisa, of like I feel like the Taurus moons I know do feel more Taurus than like a Taurus sun
Mhm.
somehow. And I don't know if it's just these horned, I don't know if I'm going to feel this way about every moon sign to come, but if it's just these very like passionate horned first two signs of the zodiac animals that are like, I care so deeply about what I care about. But I think it's interesting about this letting, not allowing that change, that moon change, because I think, Taurus can get frustrated and then like a little just like, well, I'm going to do this to do this, but also like very romantic and, it's home in the moon. And I think, appreciating maybe if your chart is lacking Venus or Taurus, other energy, but you have this Taurus moon to make some time for things that are a little more slow and sensual. If you have maybe a little more methodical other parts of your chart.
Yeah.
Is that
I
peace?
think that's this to me, that reminder is like the change at your pace or whatever. And it's like, you don't expect yourself to don't expect yourself to like go through that quickly, but know that that doesn't mean that you are incapable of getting uncomfortable, of making shifts or whatever. The Taurus moons that I'm thinking of are like literally can't be rushed in anything, like can't even eat a meal fast, won't do any, like true, literally the slowest eater, will not eat with anybody because they cannot eat at any other speed other than this thing. But I think that that's true because they are unconscious motivations. One of the descriptive kind of things for mythic astrology was just motivating factors by which we tend to live our lives as a signification of moon signs. And I think that that is what you're talking about, kind of in that like concentrated sign energy more than the sun being that, again, kind of spiritual archetypal sort of thing, and this being like, no, I eat like a Taurus, I bathe like a Taurus, I do these things or whatever, in that more like, I don't know.
I think it's a good reminder for dates or gifts or things too. Like just thinking now as an Aries moon person, I'm like, I want to be surprised. I want to do something different. Where a Taurus really might value something that's traditional or like, oh, it's our place or something like that.
Inherited, yeah.
Now that always has to be,
yeah.
A Taurus needs variety once in a while. But just thinking of the moon things of hitting them in that special sweet spot. Now this nerd, the Gemini, a pen and glasses. Let me guess, you're a cerebral one with Mercury as your leading symbol. The moon in Gemini, you're curious, smart, and quick-witted. As a Gemini moon, you approach emotions with surgical precision and prefer to rationalize them rather than feel them. You're often restless and are constantly exploring new ideas and hobbies. Try to avoid overloading yourself, though you'll end up feeling scatterbrained. Interesting. Surgical precision is not one I always think of with Gemini, but it's ringing true as I lump it into this moon descriptor.
To me, it's not so much I agree, because it feels like not so much precision, like the first try, but trying to whittle away and get down to what it is that's there. I know conversations I've had with Gemini moons when I'm trying to talk with them about how they're feeling. If you bring up something that's like not that thing, it's more like, well, no, it's this thing, it's not this thing. It might not be, it might be it might be kind of a winding way that we got there. It's not the same, like I don't know, Scorpio, like X marks the spot kind of thing. It's this exactly. I know exactly where it's filed, that sort of thing. But it does feel like, no, this is the thing that I'm kind of like glumming onto.
Yeah, I think Gemini is really comfortable with change. And so the ability to analyze your emotions in real time is not something every sign will have. I think that this photo to me invokes a very Clark Kent Superman, which I think is very Gemini moon, to have two identities kind of that you play it within both and actually live, two lives. And I think I think Tony Soto, who has been on the show as a drag performer, who has the Gemini moon, both goes by Tony Soto and Tony Soto. You know what I mean? So it's still there is this duality within. And I think that's a really interesting that. And I think, Tony specifically is someone that I get to see once in a while. And so I get to kind of, see and think about. But I do think I've watched him as he's grown up, like get more comfortable in going home early and silence and like not staying out all hours of the night or whatever, and like actually getting more rest in those things. And I think it's really, I've seen such fun like things come out of his like performance aspect from those things. So take that for what you will if you're a Gemini moon. I think that this idea of overloading and all of that is what brought that to me.
Mm-hmm. I think oddly, Gemini moon may be one that is projected onto as like an over emotional, because there is being in touch with being able to express your feelings, as opposed to, even though they aren't feeling as emotional, quote unquote emotional, like they're not crying, they're not whatever. But I think that these are folks that sometimes, and again, mitigating factors, obviously, if you're a Gemini moon that is, has a Mercury aspect to the moon where you aren't as expressive or something, whatever. I think that this is one where you're talking about feelings a lot, which sometimes to people comes off as being consumed by your feelings, as opposed to that just being the kind of mode by which we're crying out of our mouth, not out of our eyes necessarily.
And I think too with Geminis, this is just a loving read, and I think for the moons in particular, like needing validation, right? Like needing to be like, you heard what I said, right? And like read receipts, like confirmed. So I think too, when things are rhetorical and when things are, for the group to comment on or for you to comment on for your friends. So knowing when it's time to share and when it's time to maybe share more internally, which I think is something we've talked a lot as it's been Gemini season, of like what things are for journal and what things are for the social group.
That I think can also be that surgical precision of that, like all of the details of feeling like other people need to know every single detail of a thing, and it's like, hey, let's get to the general feeling that we're trying to talk about.
I've heard Gemini moons talk themselves out of being mad, talk themselves out of whatever, because that person hears they've noticed all the factors. It's like, but they probably didn't get enough sleep, so I think that's why they popped off at me. And it's like, they can just be a bitch. Like, it's cool. That's fine. Speaking of two bitches hugging, to the moon in Cancer home, you're very much in touch with your emotions and understand yourself deeply. You're also highly empathetic, so you're constantly processing other people's emotions as well as your own. You aren't comfortable sharing your emotions with other people, though, which can cause problems for you. So we have two people hugging under the moonlight, looking like the end of like an anime, saga that just happened. Lisa, resident Cancer moon, feelings, thoughts?
I don't know. I wouldn't say that I'm constantly processing other people's emotions. But I do consider them, I think. I think that oftentimes this placement gets a lot of this type of thing, which is like you're very empathetic and you like feel for others. And while that is true, it's mostly more geared toward people I care about, not necessarily just walking down the street processing other people's shit. Like, which, maybe there are Cancer moons that do that. I don't know. I have it very like nicely aspected in my chart. I guess it has some opposition stuff too, but I'm definitely not comfortable sharing my emotions with just anyone. I do feel like I do it when it's needed. I don't know that I understand myself deeply. I'm always looking. So those are the things, and it's like I don't know how a writer would like write that. So I have to say overall that I agree. I just wanted to add a little bit of
the way that Cancer.
It's a big claim. Also, understanding oneself deeply is like, okay, cool.
Always working towards that. Always like using. I love meditation and yoga and all of these things that feel like it opens me up to myself, but that doesn't mean I always know how I'm going to react to something, or that I won't just like say something horrible when it, what I mean? I feel like it's
I think that moon in Cancer writing is like the most like afflicted by like misogyny or whatever, where it is to me has this era of like some people are just natural with their emotions and they just understand themselves deeply. They're constantly thinking of other people instead of it being like, no, it just is like the one that's most like, I don't want to say comfortable with change because I don't think it's that, but it's like aware of the fluctuations, which to me is not necessarily like you just said, Lisa, of like, I don't always know how I'm going to react, but you know that you have reactions to things and you know that you need to be like aware of them, doing things that get you in touch with those things because there's like information and experience to be had there, and that emotions aren't just like,
Yeah, and
whatever. Yeah.
it's nothing in a vacuum. I have like there's a thing in my life that I feel like is very triggering. It happens every week, and I know it, and it's a mandatory thing. It's not something I can just give up on doing. And I've tried, various ways in my life to work out before, work out after, eat before, eat after, all of these things to like, try to. And at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, you just don't like that thing. Like sometimes you work out before and it takes away your bliss. Sometimes you work out after and you can't let go in your work. Like you just don't like that thing. And we all have to do things we don't like sometimes. And so it is like you're saying, knowing there's a reaction, it doesn't necessarily mean, oh, I know myself deeply and I'm able to come into this thing and be a joy in it. Like, no, I just have to sit down and be quiet and try not to like make everyone else hate it as much as I do, or you know what I mean?
Yes, I think it's just again, maybe this is me projecting as opposed to the writing, but I do think that there is a um implied idea because we say the moon is at home in Cancer and this sort of thing, that it's like no difficulty processing emotions or experiencing your own emotions, as opposed to it just being like, oh no, this is a strong influence that needs to be minded or whatever. Again, and that I don't mean that in a bad way or a good way, because I think that everybody's moon is that, but I think that for other moon and Cancer folks, if you're reading this and you go like, oh, what, like, I don't know, that feels like a lot of pressure to me to be like have this inherent instinctual understanding of your emotions because your moon is natally at home.
I mean, some of the cycles for me in my life, maybe if you have moon in Cancer, you have similar. If I don't eat regularly, I get very emotional. I have a really hard time, like, being able to talk to someone rationally if my, like, physical needs aren't met. I also, like, experience extreme, like, menstrual cycles, and I know that there are certain points, like the interview portion of a cycle is not my strong suit. So like I'm very good with preparation, but when it comes to time to like actually have to explain what I've prepared, that's not something that's a strength for me. And I've dealt with that in various ways throughout my life. But those are the cycles that come up for me.
Look, the moon can be home in Cancer, but the home might be a haunted house. So, like, we just don't know.
And it is. And it is.
We don't know what that home looks like. Is it a condo? Like, it's all different shapes and sizes.
True.
But I will say, I think moon and Cancer is like, I'm declaring it's a popular girls placement. And that's all. Like, I feel like everyone
I wish.
but just has like friends and like they connect because it's easy. Like, back to vibes, it's like easy, quickly. I think Cancer moons can connect quickly if the ingredients are right, and that's not all the time.
That speaks to, I think, the sharing of emotions and causing problems, because what I think the real sentence is sometimes you put your own stuff aside to handle other people's stuff, and you build resentment within your own self because you have never said, hey, actually, I need you to help me with my problem today. And instead you've taken on and that is a very popular girl type, oh, I can always come to her with my stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, she never has stuff of her own.
Totally. Next up, we got Moon and Leo. Hello. Friendly, waving. Look at that Leo warmth coming through. Speaking of first words, you're warm, friendly, and passionate. You have a strong need for validation and put a lot of emphasis on the way others perceive you. You prefer to stand out from the crowd and hold yourself to extremely high standards. This isn't always a bad thing, but you tend to be very hard on yourself. Ooh.
Yeah.
I don't know many Leo moons in general, probably because they're at home like working on themselves, I guess, because they're like, I'm not ready to be seen just yet.
I'm trying to think. I know I do know some Leo moons.
Then I must know some, but I don't really know many.
Unfortunately, I'm thinking of the ones that I'm thinking of. I think a lot of them are celebrity charts. And so do we know them? Do we not? But I think that this validation and tend to be hard on yourself. I don't know. This is just coming to me now, so maybe this is rude, not rude, but I think it's like that one person's approval is never enough, and so like you try to be the enough validation for yourself, but that can never be, or whatever. Like you're always going to be pushing harder because you never see how good you are or whatever it is. But also it's that sun, it's sun in the place of the moon, that kind of like perpetual movement forward, wanting to stay constant, not wanting to ever be tired, be off your game, be cranky, be hungry, be whatever it is, be a hair out of place. And while other people might not see that, and so they're going to say like, oh, you're doing great, it's that kind of things that, like Lisa was saying, that you don't necessarily see but other people see, like your consistent effort and your warmth and passion and all of that is evidence, even if you can feel the wane and wax, which isn't typically Leo to me.
It immediately spoke to me about the relationship between the sun and the moon as well, because obviously Leo is the sign of the sun, and then the moon, these two, the shadow is created from the sun, or the absence of sun. The light is a reflection from the sun, and so these two things are naturally related. I can see how, needing to be seen, and I think that maybe in that same way went to minutia for Cancer. It's like, it's not even necessarily validation, it's like recognition for hard work and stuff. It's not, I feel like validation, we give it this like, oh, they need so much this or whatever. And I think maybe it's more this idea that something that happened to me recently is like, I did something good at work and someone was like, oh, is this because we just won an award? And I was like, no, it's because I've been working hard, not because someone else has been working hard at this or whatever. And having to say that like really sucks. And so I think it's those kind of things where it's like, I just want you to see, like, I don't want to have to be the one to say, I work hard. I want you to be like, hey, you work so hard. And so I think that's different than, I don't know, I guess it is validation, but it is that like shining the light on the thing that reflects it, right?
Yes, I do think there is and again, I'm thinking of performers specifically, but a performance of emotions as well. Not that these emotions are not real, but the accurate like embodiment and expression of them being a Leo moon trait. I'm thinking again specifically of actors too, who are the ones who are like getting the recognition for showing us what it is to be human and emotional and all of those things, and using those things. That to me is a very like form of validation that is also like the physical experience of that. I think fire anything is like the spirit of something anyways, and I think in that Leo moon, it is like the not necessarily being overtaken by emotions in a way where you are like unable to function or like feel them. They don't stick necessarily, but you are able to embody them and be like representative for people to then also feel their emotions too. So it's like, if I have to do this, then I need this to be for something else, for something bigger than me, outside of myself. Does that make sense? Like
on display kind of thing.
Yeah. And this passion will live on because I have this I'm thinking Tom Cruise is an example of a Cancer Sun Leo moon, I believe. And thinking of those, like, so many lines where we like use that as a thing, as a way that we communicate our own emotions and all of that. And I think that that's a very like Leo moon.
Yeah.
Library.
I mean, it's hard to not talk about image and self and how you're seen with Leo things. And I think with the moon that's not as seen, there could be some, conflict in that inside. Like, I feel like the Leo moons I do know end up really do caring a lot of for others. And I think there is this request to bring that back to yourself. So I think maybe this For the very elusive Leo moons listening, this might be a little nice permission slip to bring it back to you. And we can see you like when your hair is not done, when you're, like I'm a mess, and it's like it's fine. Like we're here for moon stuff. Not everything needs to be the show, but we love you for the show. Like, thank you, Leos, for bringing some vivaciousness to our lives.
The next one I think too is
one
that
God.
I really feel this one shows in the way that we think the sun does, for sure.
Yeah, I'm surrounded by Virgo moon, so I'll have to be careful because I think they all listen to this podcast. Guys, they show up, they do the work, they listen, they report back. They're like, "Was that about me?" It probably is, but Moon and Virgo, we got a guy like doing like the kind of like feels like that, like one love, like chest bump sort of thing. You're independent, analytical, and dedicated. You tend to overthink things and struggle with a lot of self-criticism. But when you're being harder on yourself, it can help to remember that imperfections make you unique. No one is perfect, and that's a good thing. That's kind of like very basic Virgo,
tough,
like 101 reads, but not untrue.
Tough medicine for a Virgo. I don't think that, no one wants to hear that your imperfections make you unique.
Your shitty personality is kind of good. Like
it's special to you though. Only you have that special brand of shitty personality.
And look, we all have shitty personalities. So it's all lending to each other. We need each other for like, or I think Virgos think what they think is likable about them is like, you're putting me off, dude. Like just come as you are. It's fine.
Perfectionism being the thief of joy and all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
I think that
every time.
I think that it's definitely self-critical. It's definitely perfection. This is, I feel like, clean Virgo stereotypes. I feel like a lot of the sun stuff definitely tracks for me more with Virgo moon people. I also feel like this is that untapped physical talent, draw, sculpt, all of those kind of like more tactile things. And I do think it's analytical. And I think a lot of the time when we get analyzed, we don't realize that person probably does that to themselves. And so that's like a note to me to be kinder.
I almost feel like Virgo moon medicine is like Leo the same thing of like that like validation or something too, because it feels almost like this same, I don't want to not hate this phrase, but this is a Brene Brown phrase of hustling for your worthiness kind of thing, of like needing to, I can't take a break, I can't do this, I need to be mindful of everything that I'm eating, ingesting, sleeping enough, eating enough, taking care of myself, all of that, and being like you're okay, and it's those things of it's not ever going to be done, the laundry, the cleaning, whatever, that kind of, I don't know, it's the same, feels similar.
Yeah, life is a never-ending project that we are so lucky to get to do, but that doesn't also mean the people in your lives need to be projects. Again, watching the Queer Ultimatum, a lot of Virgos giving ultimatums. Go figure. They're like, I said we do this by this time, so why are we not? And things don't work like that.
Do you actually need to? Do you actually want to? Would you rather, like, whose timetable are you on? Kind of vibe. And it's like you are the one holding yourself to that schedule. We aren't.
Scorpio.
Oh my
God. Sorry, I do that every time. And I know you think it's intentional too, but I really do forget you. It's only because I want to be the only Venus. Okay, bye.
Well, also Virgo and Scorpio are like
they go together.
They go together, and then Libra's like, just kidding, it's me.
I was shocked when I thought this was Scorpio, the picture. And
you're like, whoa.
I almost need a spoiler alert. Oh no, we'll get
to
that.
There we go.
Love it.
We'll get to this sad sack in a second. But instead we have a girly draped over this lad. I think he's probably who's the Libra moon is the real question.
I mean, honestly, both.
I feel like Cancer was both too.
Two Cancer moons hugging. Yeah. Interesting. Our only ones with two are the Cancer and the Libra so far.
We'll see.
Moon and Libra, you strive for balance, peace, and harmony in life. You want to feel connected to the people around you, and your relationships are extremely important to you. As a Libra moon, You sometimes avoid conflict that needs to be hashed out, though, so watch out for that. Conflict isn't always negative. Also, a
Mhm.
little bit, some stereotypical things we hear for the Librans, like Libra. Oh, yeah, I'm surrounded by air moons now that I'm thinking about it.
Mhm.
My moon opposition people. I've had bad with the Libra moons, but ultimately, like, usually a fun hang, I will say. Like the social, like, easy, just it clicks sort of vibe I have sense with these Venus moon folks.
It's again, I think the same with Cancer, where it's like they're often putting aside their thing. It's
Totally.
things are out of balance. We're just not always aware because we don't know that person's going through something. And I think it's the same with the conflict avoidance thing, which I think is kind of a stereotype. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that um, I don't think that conflict is always necessary. And maybe that's something in myself, but I do think that sometimes it's like sit back and we don't need not
Mhm.
everything has to be whittled down to the how and why and who and what.
I
Mm-hmm.
think I think conflict isn't always necessary, but that doesn't mean that everything needs to be made nice.
No, I agree. And I
You know
also
what I
don't
mean?
think that you have to avoid it when it comes at you. It's a different thing. If
Yes.
someone does bring it to you and you kind of, shy away from it in what ways, I think that's a different issue.
I
Mm-hmm.
Um
think that sometimes in Moon and Libra folks, there is an absolute, like, and maybe it's an air moon detachment, but like inability to even acknowledge a counter to things of a thing where it's like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Not,
Yeah.
yeah, not I mean, it is just like what it said, where it's like, not everything has to be not making everything okay, not making everything nice. But I also think that like the Libra moon, um, wanting other people to feel it, to me, it's a not preoccupation, because that again, I'm like, pathologizing, but like other people's emotions aren't your business kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Learning to balance your own feelings about things is more important, or is the lesson not figuring out how to manipulate other people's emotions?
Mm-hmm. Totally. I think you caught on with some air sign stuff because I think can feel like those patterns, and it's like stating your needs doesn't mean it will be conflict, but the avoidance of the needs,
Mm-hmm.
odds are that's going to push you even more towards conflict, because then that's when not being able to
Yeah.
express those air things bubbles up, and it can burst.
Or not being able to hear someone else is having a bad time and not going like, oh, that's not so bad, or whatever. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like yeah.
Like things can suck.
Yeah.
Then that's okay. Speaking of suck, speaking of sucking, I'm just kidding, you guys. Scorpio moon, we have like a forlorn, which, like, again, this is WikiHow. If
Yeah.
this wasn't clear, like, this is the most basic 101 of all these moons, but I think there's something um powerful in the basic stuff sometimes of like, where does what sticks and what doesn't. Moon in Scorpio, you're intensely private and intuitive. You feel emotions deeply, but tend to be standoffish when it comes to sharing them. Others sometimes perceive you as secretive and you can be hard to get to know. Try to remind yourself that being a lone wolf isn't always a strength.
Dang, this is my mom. I don't feel like she's standoffish in her emotions. Maybe it's because she's my mom.
Mm-hmm. The
But
moon connection.
yeah, I find that she's very definitely private in certain things, but I find that she's very open and that she's also a Pisces, so maybe it's that trine aspect with the
Mm-hmm.
sun. Um, I do think she goes lone wolf a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
I guess there are people that see her as like hard to get to know or whatever, but I do think once you're in the inner circle, it's very like cut and dried. And I think in a way that I think often we say about like grandparents, where it's like she's tough to shock. She's not
Mm-hmm.
gonna just like, even if she might actually be shocked, she's not actually gonna let you in on the fact that, this surprises her or whatever. And I don't know, she's pretty strong. I feel like it's
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's pretty accurate.
Yeah, I have a lot of Scorpio moons, and like they're usually hot is something I've noticed. But also I think there's like a PR energy of like this almost in a Leo sense, like the selective sharing. Cause it's like, well, I want, a little spin of the narrative of like, I want you to know this about me versus knowing that about me. And Scorpio plays for keeps. So I think of it a lot. I feel like I'm always talking to Scorpio moons about their relationships and who they're dating or what's going on or like what in the astrology is making this person act this way. And it's like they just might be changing or they might just be different. And I think it's like, but did all the steps and I picked the right person. And it like, I think coming back to Virgo and Scorpio having a lot more in common, I do think they like control and seeing how things go in their very different twisted sort of ways. But yeah, I think if there has been like some self-isolating going on for the Scorpio moons, this is maybe a nice reminder to reach out and that we all go through the things that you're feeling and it's not in the most loving way. You're not special because of that. Like it's more universal than you might feel.
Yeah, I think Scorpio is like isn't necessarily afraid, like you were saying about not being shocked, Lisa, of like isn't afraid to think the worst of themselves, if that makes sense, or like go into those deeper, shadowier places. And that sometimes makes you more reluctant to connect with other people because you feel like other people must know that about you or see that or know that about themselves, or it gives you reasons to kind of put up walls because you go, oh, if this person knew this about me. But I like what you said, Stevie, too, about that being kind of more universal. And I think thinking of the moon as a phase too, of going like there's a deep, intense phase, but we aren't meant to stay in that phase at all times, even though your intensity can maybe be more intense than someone else. It isn't forever.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, you got the rest of you.
I get it. Oh damn! Look at this Sagittarius.
Oh my god, I love this.
I'm about to cause you so much drama.
This is so my husband right here. It looks like him.
It does.
Hello.
This does not.
Invert the hair as a beard.
We have a Sagittarius moon here, like pointing thumbs, just like, what living life. I want what he's having. You're positive, independent, and spontaneous with the Sagittarius moon sign. You don't wallow in emotions and you can easily detach yourself from them, especially if there's a new adventure waiting on the horizon. You're prone to impulsivity and escapism when the chips are down. So be sure to check in with yourself regularly.
Yeah, I don't think they necessarily embody this constant positivity. I think that gets put on them a lot. I do think they keep a full schedule in order to avoid thinking of certain things and stuff. And I actually think that's a pretty good strategy as far as stuff goes. Not as far as ignoring it completely, but giving yourself the time or allotting those times in order to say, I'm at work at this time, and at this time I have a thing with a friend, and like I process when I get home or whatever.
Something that Jess Calignano brought up on a podcast recently was about Sagittarius moons and how, of course, they get this rap of being positive and all of this, but Jupiter ruled moon being one that also can be kind of like excessively heavy emotions too, because it's like big and wanting things to be bigger than they are, not necessarily your emotions, but having that just kind of internal yearning for something more. And so that constant kind of feeling of like, is this it? And that being something that does not get talked about with moon and Sagittarius. So I think similar to Cancer moon, if it's this to me reads as one where it's like, hey, you actually don't have any emotional issues. You're detached and know how to escape. Like just tap in. No, like if you also feel kind of heavy hearted too, I think that can be,
it is big skydiving energy, right? Like, fuck it, let's do it. And
yes.
I think that can be seen as positive and spontaneous, or, it could be a symptom of something else.
Yeah. This, I think the antidote to that is to go like, this might be it. So what, like, how do we be present and check in, that kind of thing too.
Yeah. It feels very Barbie trailer, like Margot Robbie be like, you guys think about dying like on the dance floor? Like I do think the Sag moons I know do go morbid and go beyond what you think they're going to say. Sometimes a little devil's advocate-y as well, because I think they just want to see sometimes like maybe not as calculated as a Scorpio moon, but I don't think it's like to fuck with people, but it is to fuck with people a little bit, but in a more lighthearted way, or maybe that's just how it appears. So, I mean, I love a Sag. I love a Sag
I do
moon.
too. I love them.
Easy to enjoy. Well, you got off pretty easy there, Sag moons. Next up,
Damn.
Julia, you're looking serious today.
Yeah, what is that facial look is a little
how
bit
you
like,
feel inside.
Yes, that's what
you?
the face. That's like my resting face. I've had roommates ask me, "Are you mad?" And I go, no, I was like literally thinking about nothing. But my like resting face is this, just
a little worried, a little like, are they really?
What am I forgetting?
Or are they? If it's about someone else too, it feels like, are they really about to do that? Like, is checking in. But we have a very contemplative. I kind of like her pose. Like, there's something like it's a confident worry. It's like, let you go on and fuck up. Like, that's fine.
Okay. That's also a way. That's also a way to do that.
That's one way. Moon and Capricorn, you're highly rational and self-reliant. When you're a Capricorn moon, facing your emotions can be a struggle. You don't like feeling out of control. You tend to avoid showing your emotional side, which can lead to loneliness. You thrive on giving strength and support to your loved ones. Try to let go and let them support you sometimes.
Okay.
A little read.
Yeah.
A tiny read.
Absolutely.
I mean, cat moons we've talked about it on the Chris Brennan Astrology podcast. Very funny. I mean, if you're irrational, you're probably funny, because if you're rational, you're looking around being like, this is all so dumb. So I guess I'm going to be the person that acknowledges how dumb all this is. So I think there's that realistic vibe. But then being realistic is also knowing when things are frivolous and weird and like, well, then just fuck it.
Yeah, I think the realism is a value in a cat moon friendship. I think that it's that person you go, God, am I like, do I have an inflated sense of self? And they can kind of tell you like you're being realistic or you're not. I find that I don't find these people lonely. I don't think that they're Capricorn to me is very like outwardly focused. They see how others see them, right? So they're not going to be lonely because they don't want to be freaking weirdos. They want to have friends so that they like people see them as having friends. That's what I think. I mean, they want friendships too, but I think like I don't see them as like loners. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, humans should have friends, huh?
Yeah, truly though. I think sometimes there is a loneliness in going like, oh, I like think there is a detachment about emotions that feels inhuman at times, where I do feel kind of like a robot, or I go like, not because I don't have the emotions, but because I like it feels like I know the process that's running, like what's the system. Because I feel like the Capricorn moon agenda is kind of like to be above to be in control of the system as much as possible. But I think it is reminding yourself that you are not in control of the system, first and foremost. And it's not actually to be in control, it's to accept those fluctuations and that's okay. But also this thing of like receiving is part of joy, and that sort of thing too, of like letting yourself have emotions is also how you feel good and happy and silly and all of those kinds of things too. And so I think that that I don't know,
I would say this the strength and support is there too. I mean, I think I know people come to you for stuff and I'm one of them.
I do try to do that, and I do try to
there's like role model sort of vibe.
Yeah, keeping it together. But I think that it is not keeping it together, but knowing that like you can be aware of the process running, but not necessarily be run by the process.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, don't have to get ready. Don't have to if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
Yes.
The cap knows.
Well, and that like knowing, I think it's similar to Scorpio moon, but in, I think, a little bit more levity of it not being in the same thing, but knowing all of the bad thoughts and feelings, but going like, I see you are, but also like, you can't be like the voice here. Like, thank you for your input, but
you're literally not driving this boat because it's like not home, right?
You're drunk driving right now, so you can't be in charge.
I would venture a guess that Scorpio and Capricorn moon both like take work and money pretty seriously too. Like
Mhm.
Mhm.
they're probably pretty good financially. They're probably, taking their job serious.
Yes, I think of that too, of doing things not necessarily because they make you comfortable, because you know that they need to be done for like a future you too. Those kinds of
Yeah.
things. If we're talking about nurturing and emotional things of like silly ones, but ones that are always ones that like I go, how is someone not doing this? Is like putting the next toilet paper on the roll. Not necessarily for
Mhm.
me, but I know I'm gonna have to go to the bathroom again, and someone else is gonna have to go to the bathroom and do it. I might as well do the thing. Put the trash can, take the trash out, and put the bag in at the same time, kind of vibes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, did you know you're supposed to put the roll of bags into the trash can, open the top one, and then when you take the trash bag out, just rip it?
It
And
goes. That's a
saw it
great
on
one.
TikTok. Never done it in my
Yes.
life, but
But I mean, what if you get the big Costco roll though? That I'm like,
yeah,
I
it's
think our roll is
perfect.
too. Okay, all right.
I don't
Oh,
know.
like the thing of it.
The whole
Got
thing
it.
and just pull it
Got it.
out and then rip it and then I mean, who knows? I saw it on TikTok. Anyway, moving on.
No, this
Grip,
is
grip it
this
and rip
is.
it.
Thank you. Life hacks. I think these kinds of hacks
Sure.
is big
Cap
Capricorn
moon.
moon
Yeah.
culture.
I mean, this is the scariest
Whoa, that
person
is.
that
But
showed
if
up
that
so
is not a
far.
moon in Aquarius
It really
person,
is. Like, just
Okay.
like back to Tom
All right.
Cruise. This is very like the Magnolia
yes.
motivational speaker. Moon in Aquarius, you're a rebellious dreamer with big goals. You don't dwell on your personal feelings, but you're very invested in the feeling of others. You're a helper by nature and prefer fighting for a cause larger than yourself. You're quirky and thrive on being different, but try to remember you aren't a total outsider. There are people in your life who get you. Wow.
Mhm.
I
This
think the struggle on being different is being alone. And I think that's where these two feel inverted is that to serve others, you kind of have to be outside of them. To observe others, you kind of have to be, I guess you can be within to some extent, but as the observer, you're inherently kind of outside of it. And so, being different can be lonely sometimes. And
Mhm.
it's nice to stand out.
mhm. Yeah. I think Aquarians can moon aside, but I think it's definitely amplified in the moon, can just feel like nobody gets me. And it again, I think the moon is this nice reminder of like, yeah, like a lot of people feel that way. Like I
Yeah.
don't that's not
Literally
really
everyone.
that's kind of not unique. And I don't know how to break this news to you. But I think being partnered with an Aquarius moon as an Aries moon, as getting back to these keywords of observer and these bigger ideas, it's like I think squabbling or getting tied up in small details is like why, and then also needing a little more time to process is very Aquarian moon. I
Mhm.
feel like Aquarian moons in general always get like the weirdos of the zodiac, and I think it is because yeah, you're emotionally processing like an Aquarian, and Aquarians aren't really known for their emotional processing, and Aquarians can have feelings. Obviously, every sign's capable, but I think there is this, if there's going to be a natural attraction to, everybody grabbed all the puppies from the puppy sale and there's like the weird one left. It's like perfect. That's who I want. That's who I wanted, the underdog. Like I wanted the one you aren't expecting. So maybe this is your
Mhm.
sign to get like a really weird animal for TikTok or something. Your
Moon
new
in
new
Moon in
celebrity pet.
Aquarius to me is Britney Spears
Yeah, like
energy.
weird, like and with love,
With
weirdo.
yes, weirdo, absolute weirdos in the best way, but that is also like I think expressing that and knowing that like a lot of people feel that same way and have those same impulses but don't express them.
Mm-hmm.
And that is your, I think, gateway to connection, is being willing to be the one who does the weird thing so everyone goes like, oh my god, we love that. I wanted to make that weird sound but I couldn't, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it
This
is.
is
Well, and her
knowing this.
weird, sorry, and her weird thing because she's like a hot pop girl is like, I'm sorry, I like to read books and drink tea, and you're like, Brittany, that's not that weird.
Yes, exactly.
It's also knowing the system in order to subvert it, right? So it's
Mhm.
this idea that, it's saying invested in the feelings of others, but it's like be a part of the group so that you can write about it or whatever. It's you have to know the
Mm-hmm.
thing in order to subvert the system.
I think there's
Undercover
also something
journalist vibe.
Yeah.
I think there's also something about like sharing your emotional process that's very Aquarian moon to me, of like, I felt like this and then I figured out this and then I did X. And so
Mhm.
you guys can do it too. Or that like as like a high vibe of it. But I think that there is that like I felt this way, and then I found out a lot of people feel that way.
Totally. I feel I'll have to find this link, but there's a good TikTok saying we're like ripping Carrie for Sex and the City to shreds about being a Aquarius. They think she's a Aquarius, and the main insult they put to her is artless, which I just found it was just like crushing.
Brutal.
I will find it.
I think I
they
saw
were
that,
right.
and I don't disagree.
It was like an 8-minute TikTok.
But I think, but we know
it's
canon that she is a Libra sun, but I think a Libra sun Aquarius moon. Yes.
There we go. Locked in. And then
of course.
Playing a fucking flute.
Playing the flute. Yeah.
To the moon. We have Pisces moon. Yep. In this WikiHow. And watch us on YouTube. If you're not on YouTube, like, come on. I can't believe you're not here already. Like, look at these guys. This is fun to watch along. Moon in Pisces. You're empathetic, intuitive, and an old soul at heart. If you're a Pisces moon, you're very sensitive and prefer to express yourself through art or music. You often find yourself escaping from harsh reality into the safety of your inner world. You're a dreamer through and through. Just don't forget to come back down to earth occasionally. And I think similar vibes to Aquarians. I think Pisces and Aquarius get a lot of the no one understands me feeling. And then you just want to be like, oh, babe, it's fine. Like we do.
Dare I say this Kroger brand ad embodies
next to it
Taurus sun, Pisces moon,
yes,
Aquarius rising.
100.
Yeah. Also not
100%.
Sponsored by Ralph's if you're watching on YouTube. Just happen to be these are my chrome ads.
But now very much craving ice cream.
Looks so good. Yeah, I love who doesn't love a Pisces moon? It's like that's an easy to love, watery, sensitive. You're just like, this is even if someone has a really harsh chart, like whatever, maybe earthy, fiery. It's like I see a Pisces moon. I'm like, oh, you cry baby. And
they like, don't think they're creative, but they are, and it actually heals them to create.
I think this is another one. I mean, we've said it on all of them. This to me is very much the Pisces sun stereotypes. When I know someone has a Pisces moon, I'm like, oh, this is
yes,
this is Pisces.
Embodying it more. I think something maybe that hasn't been talked about with the moon is like the physicality of the moon too. I feel like Pisces moon, when they're in it, it's like head to toe, like sadness, head to toe joy, head to toe horniness. And I'm sure there's other moon signs that might pop up for that, but there's maybe not because now we're at the end. But that one, I think of Pisces really feeling it. When we talk about Pisces feeling it all, I think that's like we're really talking about Pisces.
The coming undone of it to me, I think is very Pisces moon, and I think that's why it is so expressive through creativity, because I think in that you are having to kind of like overcome your ideas or your limitations or whatever, use your imagination, all of that. You can kind of get lost in that. That is an undoing of self in its most maybe high vibe expression, but I think also that same of like, you know, the wallowing, the weeping, the full body. You know, I'm doing a lot of like laying out kind of
interesting to me, like the opposition to Virgo, because I think it is this kind of pick the self apart, but this is done in a very artistic, like fluid feeling way. And I think Virgo is done in a bit of a more logical and kind of methodical way, and for reason, where Pisces might pick themselves apart for no reason and those kind of things.
Well, to like it says, to come back down to earth, to like hopefully evaporate into the etheric,
nothing,
as opposed to Virgo, I think, wanting to keep it
all
on
together,
earth for sure. And that being the kind of thing of like, I think that Pisces moon can get so blown out, the emotions again can get so overwhelming and all consuming that we are no longer in reality. Whereas it's like, hey, I know it feels like that, but like, it's a Tuesday, babe. Let's
I feel like Pisces moons are usually showing me someone else's natal chart before they're showing me their natal chart too. It's like, tell me all about this person. I'm like, wait, I need to know more. I need to know what's the skinny on you, babe. So yeah, I think, that melding world, that wateriness. I think if you don't have some way to channel that, it doesn't always have to be art or music, but that's what Pisces can tend to do.
It can be a fanfic. I think this is a great fan fiction fantasy weaving placement.
Also, back to Virgo stuff. If anyone does know where to get a good Dyson, like what's a knockoff? Are there good knockoffs to Dyson, or do you just
Are you looking for the hair one? I don't know about
that.
No,
sorry. I should clarify. I need a vacuum. That's what.
Oh,
yeah.
Look at Costco.
Oh,
yeah. They don't do sales, so look at Costco. That's the.
We're Dyson. We don't do sales.
They don't.
Yeah, they don't need to.
And also, they don't
so
like
good.
if you have a Bed and Bath coupon or any of those, I think they're extinct now or whatever. But any of those, they don't.
Gun down.
Dyson doesn't.
They do have pretty good warranty and replacement stuff. I have had to do that for someone else, not for my own. But
okay, well, just because all my ads, like, they know what I've been Googling. So it was just like, I need a vacuum, but I just don't know if, like, like Vitamix, you can get Ninja. Like, we don't have to go full name brand, but I don't know if Dyson's like that. Is what I'm finding out. And that was WikiHow. Captivate. Yeah. I didn't know it would suck us in quite like that, but should have known. It's the moon, but.
Well, do y'all want to play a quick game before we go?
Yes, let's do it.
I can't get enough moon.
Here we go.
We're debuting a new segment.
New game called Would You Ship Moon Sign Edition.
Okay.
Another incentive to watch us on YouTube. Lisa has made beautiful visuals.
Gorgeous. I don't know if it's a beautiful.
What is this, the Grateful Dead show?
Well,
the visuals are crazy.
This game is to show how different astrologers might come to different conclusions based on their own lived experience or their own takes on astrology. I'm going to give you a couple of things. You tell me which ones you put together. First one, would you put a Virgo moon with a Taurus moon or a Capricorn moon? They're all moon sign edition.
Okay.
And we're just shipping them.
You're just putting them in a relationship. And I would say like a romantic marriage, long term.
I'm going to ship the Virgo moon with the Taurus moon. I don't think Virgo moon needs any more. I do think that a Virgo moon and Capricorn moon could like rule the world. But for the Virgo moon, I want that Taurus moon. And I think the Taurus moon needs the Virgo moon more than the Virgo moon needs the Cap moon.
I was feeling similar. I don't know. Something about the Taurus Virgo feels like more pleasurable. Not that Virgo and Cap can't bump uglies, but I think Taurus I think it's mainly that Taurus needs a Virgo or Capricorn versus Virgo needing anybody's. But I want Virgo to maybe let loose a little bit, which is going to be more Taurus than Cap.
I have a similar take. I think I choose Taurus moon because Virgo moon is all about the harvest, right? It's reaping what you've sown. And I think Taurus just really fits into that in a consumeristic kind of way, where I feel like Capricorn's going to be a little bit more like, oh, what are we going to grow next year? And I think for the Virgo moon being our like centerpiece here, sure, that Capricorn moon can really motivate them and do those kind of things. And I think we need to feed that critical nature and feed it with something that's really gratitude, and I'm going to use this. This is what we've harvested. All right, next cue. Would you ship Sag moon with another Sag moon or a Scorpio moon?
I've only because I've seen it with my own two eyes. I've been raised by Sagittarius moon mom and Sagittarius moon stepdad who stepped up, and man, they're having a good time. Like I don't always think same signs is always good, but they're also both Virgo sun, both Sag moon, and it's like, wow, so y'all really do just stay agreeing with each other, and sometimes that's all they want. I think the Scorpio moon, I like it as like I'm not always going to agree with you on everything, like a counterpart. Like I think it just depends on what that Sag moon wants, but I'm going to ship the fellow Sag moon just because I've seen it work before.
Yeah, I think I agree. If we are able to genetically engineer this in the way that this game implies, I agree, only because I do think that Sag moon wants that like upward trajectory, and I do think that Scorpio moon is just going to bum it out. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I love both of these moons. And I do like a Sag moon. I do think a Sag moon Scorpio combo could work if you're at home listening to this and you're knowing that this is your relationship chart. I do think it can work and could give great depth to that Sag moon too, but I do think, kind of like Stevie's saying, that these two Sag moons together I think could really shine.
Yeah, I mean they're scary. Like,
yeah,
like
it's intense a lot.
yeah, it's like they're in their own world, and I do like Scorpio grounding that world for Sag, but also like Scorpio needs. I want Scorpio moon to also be able to dream big, and I think sometimes they can get a little jealous of the Sag energy being sisters, next door to each other in the zodiac.
I chose these two because I found them to be the most. I find them very compatible, both of them. Though I do think, depending on the type of Sagittarius and their interests, two Sagittarius moons with a like completely different interests, I don't think would be a great match, where other signs I think can balance. However, when they hit, and I think that would be the one I would choose. The danger, I think, being with the type of Sagittarius moon we were talking about, where things feel like everything's so big, I'm not able to process. Scorpio's going to dig into that even deeper, while the other Sagittarius might bring them out. Now, if it's these two, Scorpio and Sag, have this super same interest, maybe it works better that way, but I'm going to go Sag and Sag.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one is with charts. So there are 3 celebrity charts. I prefer you use the moon and the moon's aspect, so that it's not a whole chart analysis.
Mm-hmm.
It's a celebrity. They have dated both celebrities.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Fun.
So
wow. Okay.
The mystery celebrity in white is the main. This is the anchor.
Yes. So we're talking about this moon's sun Leo, moon Scorpio.
Cancer rising
is our mystery celeb who we are deciding to ship with either
a Leo sun and
another Leo sun Scorpio
moon, or sorry if it's the thing is,
or Aries sun Gemini moon,
right?
Ooh, okay.
The second chart, the mystery celeb one's chart, is really interesting.
It is.
I know we don't have the rising too, but just from that. I mean, the Jupiter.
It is. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
so Scorpio, 2 Scorpio moon. Oh, wait.
Or in Aries. You can kind of use the aspects too. That's why I wanted to.
They're both Leo sun Scorpio moons.
Right.
Okay.
Celeb 1 and mystery and our.
See, I like the 2 Leos together because I also am a big fan of Leo on Leo relationships. But the double Scorpio moon, I don't know. Now I'm inching back slowly towards the wall.
Number 2 and our primary also have the same rising, all like pretty close in degree too. So it's tough to say.
I'm like so afraid of who these 3.
Oh no, I didn't pick anyone too weird.
Okay. I'm gonna go celeb 2, only because I like that they're both fire suns, but I think that we need a moon that can listen to this Scorpio moon till the cows come home kind of thing to be talking this out. And I think that this Gemini moon in the 12th with this Scorpio moon in the 5th. I also like these celeb 2 has, I know we're supposed to be sticking to the moon, but they also have this Venus Mars conjunction, and mystery, our primary celeb, has this Venus on the ascendant in Cancer. And I also like that this Sun Mars conjunction too, that I feel like the intensities are there, but in a kind of different way.
I'm not going to weigh in here because I know who it is. And so I feel like I'm giving, more information.
I'm also feeling number 2. Maybe it is because I'm sucked into the rising, I'm trying to keep it purely moon based. But I've seen Gemini Scorpio pairs. It just works. Like, I can't remember what their other quincunx. I don't know. I know many Scorp and Gems that they can kick it. Yeah, I'm a little worried how too similar celeb one is to our anchor celeb. So I'm
All right.
also I'm gonna cash my coin for 2.
Are you ready for the answer?
Ready.
Yeah. Who could it be? Let's see.
Where want to go?
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
thinking of like Leo celebs. Oh
Wow.
no. Oh,
I do
no.
feel
This makes
like
sense.
this
sense.
J-Lo, it does feel a bit more passionate. It feels like where I feel like Jennifer Garner maybe feels like this kind of Cancer rising, a person that feels like home kind of thing.
Well, this is who we're
But I
having
think-
kids with, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
So
Well, I was like, and this is who we can consciously uncouple from and still maintain a
Right.
relationship with.
They are
So-
wait, they're both Leo sun, Scorpio
Scorpio moons.
moons.
look,
I said they're like the same person. And
I
it
don't know.
is.
I don't know if their charts are right, but I thought it was fun.
That is
No,
I
a fun
didn't
one.
make up the charts.
It
They're
is.
from Astro. I just,
Yeah.
I thought they were fun.
Well, we don't. Yeah, I mean, they are fun.
No,
Yes,
this
I
was
love it.
perfect.
Wow.
It was
Thank you for
perfect.
playing.
What a great game!
Crazy.
This was
We
the
were like,
debut.
Jennifer Garner's your soulmate, but you meant oh well.
Well, but
been
this
there,
just
done
goes
that.
to show.
But he
that-
came back to JLo. What
Mhm.
can you imagine next? Because they got together during that some sort of Venus retrograde. And they're both Gemini. I mean, look, that's going to be the prediction. He's going to go back to Gardner in 20 years.
Well, it just goes to show about what's more necessarily compatible doesn't actually mean that you're
It works
into it. Yes, that's
Mhm.
one.
And they
the,
did-
the one that you want and want to work
for
on
a long time, and then both
Yeah.
things work. So I think
Yeah.
that was a good example because is like I said, he's
Well,
dated both of them. So
J-Lo with that Moon Neptune too, though. I'm like, she's the dream girl.
Mhm.
Dude, her
you
chart
can't-
was
you can't
wild.
compete with that.
Her
Her
chart's
chart was
wild.
on.
So is his. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, very interesting.
Also, there's a good TikTok of Ben Affleck probably in his drinking days doing Armageddon DVD commentary, and it's just like I don't know why you wouldn't just train astronauts how to drill, but okay, I guess you got to send the drillers to space, just clowning on the whole concept of the
love it.
movie. It's pretty. It made me move.
From the guy who brought you a movie about the janitor genius.
He's
Not
like,
saying
"What
the
the
janitors
fuck?"
can't be geniuses. Okay.
Loved it.
Love it.
Well, the moon, she delivers. She's something.
Yeah.
She's the moment. She's the story.
She's changing, but she's always a woman
With
to
us.
me.
Yeesh.
We love you. Thank you so much for listening. Subscribe to us on YouTube so you can see all of those beautiful visuals. And thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.